I'll never forget the sound of the heart monitor beeping next to my daughter's hospital bed, or the moment my sister Lisa leaned over her unconscious body and said, "Maybe it's better if she doesn't survive. Her mother is a curse." Those words hit me like physical blows, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. But what happened next? That made the doctor drop his clipboard and my relatives gasp in horror. My 7-year-old son became our unexpected hero that day, and I need you to understand exactly how we got there. I'm Rachel, 34 years old, and I've been a single mother for 2 years now. My daughter Melody just turned 9 last month. We celebrated with a homemade chocolate cake and dollar store decorations because money was tight, but her smile lit up our entire apartment. She didn't care about expensive parties. She said having me and her little brother there was the only gift she needed. That's the kind of kid she is. Was. No, is. She's still here. She's still fighting. My son Bryce is 7, almost 8 as he likes to remind everyone. He's got this wild sandy brown hair that sticks up no matter how much I try to tame it, and these serious gray eyes that seem to see everything. People always comment on how quiet he is, but they mistake his silence for shyness. Bryce isn't shy. He's observant. He watches, he listens, and he remembers everything. That trait would save our family. The nightmare started on a Tuesday morning. Melody was supposed to go on a field trip to the Natural History Museum with her 4th grade class. Her best friend, Harper's mom, Jennifer, had volunteered to drive a group of kids. I'd packed Melody's lunch the night before, made sure she had her permission slip, and gave her $20 for the gift shop. She'd hugged me extra tight that morning. "Love you, Mom," she'd said, bouncing out the door with her backpack covered in rainbow patches we'd sewn on together to hide the worn spots. "Love you more, baby," I'd called after her. 3 hours later, I got the call that every parent dreads. There'd been an accident. A pickup truck had run a red light and T-boned Jennifer's minivan on the passenger side. The passenger side where my daughter was sitting. The other kids walked away with bruises and minor cuts. Harper had a broken wrist. Jennifer had whiplash. But my Melody? My baby girl took the full impact. Internal bleeding, traumatic brain injury, fractured ribs, and a punctured lung. The paramedics said she was lucky to be alive. Lucky. That word felt like mockery as I stood in that hospital room, watching machines breathe for my daughter. The doctors at Children's Hospital worked on her for 9 hours that first day. Dr. Harrison, the head of pediatric trauma, looked exhausted when he finally came to update me. "She's stable for now," he said carefully, "but the next 72 hours are critical. Her brain is swelling and we've had to induce a coma to give her body the best chance to heal." I remember nodding like I understood, but the words just floated around me. Induced coma, brain swelling, critical condition. This was my little girl who'd been learning to ride a bike without training wheels, who still slept with her stuffed elephant named Peanut, who wanted to be a marine biologist when she grew up because she loved dolphins. Word spread through our family fast. My sister Lisa arrived within an hour, clicking through the hospital corridors in her designer heels, her blonde hair perfectly styled even in crisis. She's 38, 4 years older than me, and she's never let me forget it. Lisa runs a successful real estate company, drives a white Mercedes, and lives in a house that looks like something from a magazine. No kids, no husband anymore since Richard left her last year, just her and her success. "Oh, Rachel," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like expensive perfume. "Don't worry, I'm here now. I'll handle everything." That should have been my first warning. Lisa only handled things when there was something in it for her. My brother Todd came next, rushing straight from his construction site. His work boots left dusty prints on the pristine hospital floor, and his flannel shirt was torn at the shoulder. Todd's 35, built like our dad was, all broad shoulders and calloused hands. He grabbed me in a bear hug that actually felt real, actually felt like comfort. "She's tough like you, Rach," he whispered. "She's gonna pull through." Then came my mother, Gloria, 71 years old and moving slowly with her walker since her hip replacement. Mom had been living with Lisa for the past year, ever since Dad died of a heart attack. She'd wanted to stay in their old house, but Lisa convinced her she couldn't manage alone. I'd offered to have her move in with me and the kids, but Lisa had laughed. "In that tiny apartment? Mom needs proper care, Rachel, not good intentions." The parade of relatives continued. Aunt Paula, my mom's younger sister, a retired school principal who always had an opinion about how I raised my kids. Uncle Jerome, Paula's husband, who sold insurance and constantly reminded me I was underinsured. My cousin Vera, who worked as a nurse and immediately began questioning the doctor's decisions. Mom's sister, Aunt Dolly, who lived in Florida but happened to be visiting. They all gathered in that hospital room, creating a semicircle around Melody's bed, and I should have felt supported. I should have felt loved, but something was off. I caught the looks they exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching, the whispered conversations that stopped when I approached, the way Lisa kept putting her hand on my shoulder and saying, "You need to be realistic, Rachel." Realistic about what? My daughter was 9 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. There was nothing realistic about giving up on her. But the worst part? The absolute worst part was still to come. Because while I sat there holding my daughter's hand, praying for her to wake up, my own family was plotting against us. And if it hadn't been for my 7-year-old son and his decision to stand up when it mattered most, I might have lost everything. Bryce had been my shadow through all of this. The hospital had rules about children visiting the ICU, but Dr. Harrison made an exception when he saw how Bryce just planted himself in that chair and refused to leave. "I'm staying with Mom and Melody," he'd announced in that serious way of his, and something in his tone made everyone stop arguing. He'd brought his coloring book and crayons, the ones I'd bought him from the dollar store, and he'd sit there for hours, carefully filling in pictures of superheroes and race cars. But I knew he wasn't really coloring. He was watching. He was listening. He was doing what Bryce always did, taking in everything around him and storing it away in that sharp mind of his. What happened next would prove that sometimes the smallest soldiers fight the biggest battles, and that truth spoken by a child can shatter the lies adults tell themselves. The confrontation was coming, and when it arrived, it would change everything we thought we knew about family, loyalty, and love. The stage was set. The players were in position, and my 7-year-old son was about to expose secrets that would destroy the perfect facades my family had built. But to understand the full impact of what Bryce did, you need to know exactly what happened when exhaustion finally overtook me on day 3 of our hospital vigil. 3 days before the confrontation that would shatter my family, Melody's accident turned our world upside down. The field trip was supposed to be the highlight of her school year. She'd been talking about the Natural History Museum for weeks, especially the new ocean exhibit with the dolphin skeletons and interactive tide pools. Jennifer, Harper's mom, was one of those super organized parents who always volunteered. She had a spotless minivan with proper booster seats and always played kid-friendly music. I trusted her completely. The pickup truck that hit them was going 50 miles per hour through a red light. The driver was reaching for his phone, the police said later. 1 second of distraction, and my daughter paid the price. The impact crushed the sliding door right where Melody sat. They had to use the jaws of life to get her out while Harper screamed for her best friend to wake up. When I arrived at the hospital, they wouldn't let me see her at first. A nurse with kind eyes held my shoulders and said Melody was in surgery, that the doctors were doing everything they could. Those were the longest 9 hours of my life. I paced that waiting room until I memorized every stain on the carpet, every crack in the pale green walls, every flicker of the fluorescent lights. Our life before the accident wasn't perfect, but it was ours. After Dennis left 2 years ago, claiming he needed to find himself, I rebuilt our little family from scratch. The divorce had been brutal. Dennis fought me on everything from custody to who got the coffee maker. He ended up moving to Seattle, supposedly for a fresh start with some woman named Tanya he'd met online. The kids got birthday cards with checks that sometimes bounced and phone calls that grew less frequent each month. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Days at a dental office doing billing and insurance claims, evenings at a grocery store stocking shelves after the kids went to bed. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, would sit with them for $10 an hour, which was all I could afford. Some nights, I'd come home at midnight to find Bryce reading to Melody from their favorite book series about a time-traveling scientist. He'd taken over that ritual when the evening shifts started. The apartment was small but clean. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that connected to a living room just big enough for our secondhand couch, and the TV I'd bought at a yard sale. Melody and Bryce shared a room without complaint. We'd painted it ourselves last summer, soft blue with clouds on the ceiling that glowed in the dark. Melody had drawn dolphins jumping between the clouds, and I didn't have the heart to tell her dolphins don't fly. My family had opinions about our living situation, of course. Lisa never missed an opportunity to point out what we lacked. "Those children deserve better, Rachel," she'd say, usually while showing me photos of her latest house listing. "This 3-bedroom in Maple Grove would be perfect for you. If only you'd finished college instead of getting pregnant." The pregnancy comment always stung. I'd been 24 in my junior year studying accounting when I found out I was having Melody. Dennis and I got married at City Hall with just our parents present. I dropped out to work full-time while he finished his degree in engineering. The plan was I'd go back to school once he got established. That plan, like so many others, never materialized. Todd was different from Lisa. He'd slip me cash when he could, always claiming he owed me from some imaginary bet. He'd show up on weekends to fix things around the apartment, bringing his tools and his quiet support. "You're doing great, sis," he'd say while replacing a leaky faucet or patching a hole in the wall. "These kids are lucky to have you." My mother's relationship with me had grown complicated since she moved in with Lisa. She used to be my biggest defender, but lately she'd started echoing Lisa's criticisms. "Maybe you should consider letting Melody spend summers with Lisa," she'd suggested just last month. "She could take tennis lessons, go to that fancy camp at the lake." "Mom, Melody doesn't want tennis lessons," I'd replied. "She wants to be with her family." "Family doesn't pay bills, Rachel," Mom had said, and something in her tone felt rehearsed, like she was repeating words someone else had, planted. The hospital became our new world after the accident. The pediatric ICU at Children's Hospital was both terrifying and oddly comforting. The nurses knew their stuff. They talked to Melody like she could hear them, explaining what they were doing, telling her about the weather outside. Dr. Harrison had a calm confidence that kept me from falling apart completely. He was maybe 50, with graying hair and pictures of his own kids on his ID badge. "We're monitoring her intracranial pressure," he explained on day 2. "The swelling is our biggest concern right now. Her body needs time to heal, and the induced coma gives her that chance. Children are remarkably resilient, Mrs. Carter. Don't lose hope." Hope? I clung to that word like a life raft. Hope was all I had while machines breathed for my daughter and IV lines fed her nutrients she should have been getting from the lunch I'd packed with such care. The peanut butter sandwich with the crusts cut off, the apple slices that wouldn't brown because I'd sprinkled them with lemon juice, the note I always tucked inside that said, "Mom loves you to the moon and back." On day 3, exhaustion finally won. I'd been awake for nearly 72 hours straight, surviving on hospital coffee and whatever vending machine food Todd brought me. My eyes burned, my head throbbed, and my body felt like it was made of lead. I was holding Melody's hand, whispering stories about the summer we'd go to the beach when she got better, when sleep just took me. One moment I was telling her about building sandcastles, the next I was gone, my head resting on the edge of her bed. I woke to voices, but something made me keep my eyes closed. Maybe it was the tone, that hushed conspiracy sound people use when they're saying things they shouldn't. Lisa's voice cut through the quiet beeping of machines. "Look at her," Lisa said, and I could hear the disdain dripping from every word. "Rachel's always been bad luck. First Dennis left her, then she lost her job at the bank, now this. Maybe it's better if Melody doesn't survive. Her mother is a curse." My blood turned to ice. My own sister, standing over my unconscious daughter, was saying these words. I wanted to scream, to jump up and throw her out, but shock kept me frozen. Through my barely open eyes, I could see Aunt Paula nodding along. "You might be right," Paula responded, her teacher voice making it sound like she was discussing a lesson plan instead of my child's life. That poor child would struggle growing up with Rachel barely making ends meet, and the medical bills alone will bankrupt her. What kind of life is that? Uncle Jerome, who'd made a fortune selling life insurance policies by scaring people about worst-case scenarios, added his wisdom. "If the worst happens, at least the girl won't suffer." Rachel can barely take care of herself, let alone 2 kids. She's working herself to death for what? A cramped apartment and generic cereal? I bit my lip. So hard I tasted blood. These people had eaten at my table, celebrated birthdays with my children, accepted whatever hospitality I could offer, and now they were standing around my daughter's bed, discussing her death like it was a mercy. Lisa wasn't done. She never was when she smelled opportunity. I've already talked to my lawyer friend, Martin. If Melody doesn't make it, and we can prove Rachel's unfit, Bryce could come live with me. I can give him the life he deserves. Private school, college fund, stability. The boy's brilliant. It's criminal to waste his potential in public school. How would you prove she's unfit? Aunt Paula asked, and I could hear the interest in her voice. I've been documenting things, Lisa said casually. The times she's left them with that Chinese woman because she can't afford proper childcare, the secondhand clothes, the fact that she feeds them mac and cheese 3 nights a week. Martin says courts look at the total picture of neglect, mac and cheese. My kids loved mac and cheese. We made it special with cut-up hot dogs and called it fancy dinner. They'd laugh and ask for seconds. That was neglect to Lisa? What about Todd? Jerome asked. Won't he fight you on this? Lisa laughed, a cold sound that I'd never heard from her before. Todd can barely take care of himself. Besides, he knows I'm right. He just feels sorry for Rachel because she's his baby sister. Guilt isn't the same as thinking she's a good mother. I could see Bryce in my peripheral vision, sitting in his corner chair. His coloring book was open, but his crayon wasn't moving. He was listening to every word, his little body tense. Part of me wanted to protect him from hearing this, but I still couldn't move, couldn't speak. The betrayal was paralyzing. More relatives arrived over the next hour, and Lisa held court like some kind of grief counselor with an agenda. Each time she'd pull them aside, speaking in those same hushed tones. I caught fragments as they thought I slept. To my cousin Vera, the doctors are just prolonging the inevitable. Rachel's too emotional to make rational decisions. To Aunt Dolly, if we all present a united front, we can convince Rachel to let Melody go peacefully. It's the Christian thing to do. To a cousin whose voice I couldn't place, I have power of attorney paperwork ready. In her state, Rachel might sign anything. They talked about my daughter like she was already gone. They divided up my children like property in an estate sale. Lisa would take Bryce because he showed promise. Maybe Todd could check on Rachel occasionally, make sure she didn't do anything drastic in her grief. Mom sat silent through all of it, her walker scraping against the floor occasionally as she shifted, but never speaking up, never defending me or Melody. The worst part was when Lisa leaned directly over Melody and whispered, as if my unconscious daughter could hear her. Don't worry, sweetheart. Aunt Lisa will take good care of Bryce. He'll have everything you would have wanted for him. The best schools, the best opportunities, things your mother could never give either of you. She was writing my daughter's obituary and planning my son's future, while Melody's heart was still beating, while her chest still rose and fell with the ventilator, while there was still hope. Dr. Harrison had said children were resilient. He'd said not to lose hope, but my family had already given up. No, worse than that. They were eager for the end. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks but didn't dare wipe them away. Any movement would give me away, and I needed to hear everything. I needed to know exactly who these people really were. The family I'd trusted, relied on, loved despite their flaws, had revealed themselves as vultures circling what they assumed was dying prey. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd forgotten about Bryce. The door opened with its familiar pneumatic whoosh, and Dr. Harrison entered with his team. 2 residents flanked him, tablets in hand, and a nurse I recognized as Stephanie, who'd been especially kind to Melody. The sudden shift in the room was palpable. The vultures straightened their backs and put on their masks of concern. Mrs. Carter, Dr. Harrison said gently, clearly thinking I was asleep. Lisa immediately stepped forward, placing herself between the doctor and my bedside position. She's exhausted, doctor. I'm her sister, Lisa. Perhaps we should speak in the hallway and let her rest? Actually, this concerns Melody's treatment directly. Mrs. Carter needs to hear this. Dr. Harrison moved past Lisa toward me, and I finally opened my eyes, sitting up slowly as if just waking. My back ached from the position I'd been holding. I'm awake, I said, my voice hoarse from crying. What is it, doctor? Dr. Harrison's expression was serious, but not grim. Melody's latest scans show the swelling has stabilized. However, there's a surgical option we need to discuss. It's a newer procedure called decompressive craniectomy with duroplasty. We would remove a section of skull temporarily to allow the brain room to swell without causing additional damage, then reconstruct the protective covering. What are the risks? I asked, already knowing my answer but needing the information. There are significant risks, he admitted. Infection, bleeding, the possibility that it won't change the outcome. But there's also a strong possibility it could give her brain the space it needs to heal properly. In similar cases with children Melody's age, we've seen remarkable recoveries. The success rate is approximately 60% for significant improvement. Lisa immediately interjected, her voice dripping with false concern. Doctor, as Rachel's sister, I think we need to be realistic about quality of life here. Even if Melody survives, what kind of life would she have? Brain damage, possibly severe disabilities. Perhaps we should consider other options. The words "other options" hung in the air like a death sentence. I saw Dr. Harrison's eyebrows furrow slightly at Lisa's eagerness to discuss alternatives. The only option that matters is saving my daughter, I said, standing up fully now, my legs shaky, but my voice firm. Whatever it takes. When can you do the surgery? Lisa touched my shoulder with what others might interpret as sympathy, but I now recognized as manipulation. Rachel, honey, you're exhausted and not thinking clearly. The medical bills alone could destroy your future, Bryce's future. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let nature take its course. Aunt Paula chimed in, Lisa's right, dear. You have to think about Bryce, too. How will you care for a disabled child while working 2 jobs? It's not fair to him. Or to Melody, Uncle Jerome added. Do you really want her to wake up and struggle every day? That's not love, Rachel. That's selfishness. The room felt smaller suddenly, all these people pressing in with their opinions about my daughter's life, about what was kind, what was selfish, what was realistic. My mother sat silent in her wheelchair, studying her hands like they held answers. Todd stood by the window, his jaw clenched, looking like he wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. That's when my 7-year-old son stood up. The sound of his coloring book hitting the floor made everyone turn. Bryce walked to the center of the room with the kind of determination I'd only seen when he'd decided to learn to tie his shoes by himself. He'd practiced for hours, refusing help until he got it right. His voice was clear and strong, cutting through the adult noise like a blade. Aunt Lisa, should I tell everyone what you did when Mom was asleep? The color drained from Lisa's face so fast I thought she might faint. Bryce, sweetheart, what are you talking about? Dr. Harrison had frozen mid-sentence, his tablet hanging in the air. The residents exchanged glances. Stephanie, the nurse, took a small step forward as if ready to protect Bryce if needed. I know what you did, Bryce said, his gray eyes locked on Lisa's. I saw you. This is ridiculous, Lisa said, but her voice had gone up an octave. He's 7 years old. He's confused and upset about his sister. I'm not confused, Bryce said, and there was something almost adult in his tone. You went through Mom's purse when she was sleeping. You took pictures of all her papers, her bank stuff, her bills. The notice about the electricity almost getting shut off last month that Mom handled by working extra shifts. Lisa tried to laugh, but it came out strangled. Even if that were true, I was probably just trying to help figure out finances for the family. Then why did you call someone named Martin right after? Bryce continued, his small hands clenched at his sides. Why did you tell him to start the paperwork and that you'd have everything ready to prove Mom's unfit? The room went completely silent except for the steady beep of Melody's monitors. Dr. Harrison slowly lowered his tablet, his attention fully on the drama unfolding before him. My relatives stood frozen like guilty statues. And last month, Bryce continued, his voice gaining strength with each word, when you babysat us, you told me Mom was weak. You said she couldn't take care of us properly. You said if anything bad happened, I should tell the judge I wanted to live with you. You made me promise not to tell Mom. You said it would hurt her feelings. Lisa's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I was just trying to prepare you for possibilities. No, Bryce said firmly. You were lying. Mom's not weak. She works 2 jobs and still helps us with homework. She makes our lunch every day with notes that say she loves us. She reads to us even when she's so tired she can barely keep her eyes open. Mom stayed up all night when Melody had the flu, putting cold towels on her head and singing the dolphin song Melody likes. That's not weak. You're weak because you can't see what really matters. Bryce reached into his pocket and pulled out the battered iPhone 6 I'd given him months ago. It barely held a charge anymore, and the screen had a crack across the corner, but he treasured it because it could play simple games and take videos. Mom taught me to always tell the truth and stand up for what's right, he said, holding the phone up. So when Aunt Lisa kept saying mean things about Mom, I did what Mom taught me about documenting important things. I recorded her. Lisa lunged forward. That's my private conversation. You can't record people without their permission. Dr. Harrison stepped between Lisa and Bryce, his protective instinct clear. Ma'am, please step back. Let's hear what the child has to say. With shaking hands, I took the phone from Bryce. My finger hovered over the play button for a moment before I pressed it. Lisa's voice filled the hospital room, crystal clear despite the phone's tiny speaker. Once I prove Rachel's incompetent, I'll get custody of both kids, Lisa's recorded voice said. The survivor benefits from their father's life insurance policy alone are worth $300,000. Rachel doesn't even know Dennis updated it before he died in that plane crash last month. His lawyer contacted me as the secondary beneficiary to locate the children. I told him I'd handle informing Rachel at the appropriate time. The room erupted. My legs gave out and Todd caught me before I hit the floor. Dennis is dead? I gasped, the words feeling impossible. He died last month, and you knew? Lisa's face had gone from pale to gray. Her perfect composure finally cracked completely. I was going to tell you at the right time. The right time? Todd's voice boomed, angrier than I'd ever heard him. When? After Melody's funeral? After you'd stolen Bryce? The recording wasn't done. Lisa's voice continued. Dennis was never remarried. That woman, Tanya, was just someone he dated briefly. He's been in therapy, got sober, was planning to reconnect with the kids. His whole estate goes to them, with Rachel as trustee unless she's deemed unfit. Then it defaults to the secondary guardian, which he named as me 2 years ago during the divorce when Rachel was being difficult about custody arrangements. I remembered that. Lisa had offered to be the backup guardian, saying it would show the court we had family support. I'd been grateful, thinking she was helping me keep my children. There's more, Bryce said quietly. He swiped to another recording. This one was from last month when Lisa had babysat. Listen carefully, Bryce, Lisa's voice said. Your mom tries hard, but she's not equipped to give you and Melody what you deserve. I have a big house with a pool. You could have your own room, a computer, anything you want. If something happens, if someone asks where you want to live, you should say with me. It would be better for everyone. What about Mom? Bryce's small voice asked on the recording. Your mom would understand eventually. She knows she can't provide for you properly. Working at a grocery store? Living in that tiny apartment? That's no life for children with your potential. Dr. Harrison set down his tablet completely. Miss Lisa, I think you should leave. Security is on their way. This is a family matter, Lisa sputtered, trying to regain control. That recording doesn't mean anything. I was concerned about the children's welfare. You were concerned about $300,000, Aunt Paula said, and I was shocked to hear disgust in her voice. My God, Lisa. Dennis is dead and you didn't tell your own sister? You let her think he was living it up in Seattle while she worked herself to exhaustion? And you were planning this while Melody's fighting for her life? Vera added, stepping away from Lisa like she was contagious. Mom finally spoke, her voice trembling. Lisa Marie Hendricks, how could you? That's not how I raised you. These are children, not lottery tickets. Lisa turned on her, eyes flashing. You agreed with me. All of you did. You said Rachel couldn't handle it, that the kids would be better off with someone stable. We thought you were trying to help, Jerome protested. Not that you were plotting to steal inheritance money. Bryce wasn't finished. He looked directly at Dr. Harrison. She also called someone yesterday and said if Melody dies, she knows someone who can rush custody papers through the system. She said she has a judge who owes her a favor from a house sale. Two security guards appeared in the doorway. Dr. Harrison nodded toward Lisa. "Please escort Miss Hendricks out. She's no longer permitted in the pediatric ICU." "This is ridiculous!" Lisa shrieked, her perfect facade completely shattered. "I'm trying to help. Rachel can't handle this. She can't even pay her electric bill. Those kids deserve better." "They deserve their mother," Bryce shouted, and tears were streaming down his face now. "They deserve someone who loves them, not someone who sees them as money. Mom sold her jewelry to buy Melody the art supplies she wanted. She skips lunch to save money for our field trips. That's love. You don't even know Melody's favorite color." "It's turquoise," I whispered, "like the ocean where the dolphins swim." Lisa tried one more time as security took her arms. "Rachel, please, I was trying to protect the children's future." "No," I said, finding my strength as I stood up fully. "You were trying to steal their future and their past. You let me believe their father was alive when he was dead. You let my children think they were abandoned when actually their father was trying to come back to them." Dr. Harrison cleared his throat as security removed Lisa, her designer heels clicking frantically against the floor as she protested. "Mrs. Carter, I need to know about the surgery. Given everything that's happened, are you prepared to make this decision?" I looked at Melody, so small in that hospital bed, fighting without even knowing it. Then I looked at Bryce, my 7-year-old hero who'd stood up to adults 3 times his size to protect his family. "Do the surgery," I said firmly. "My daughter is going to survive this. She has too much to live for." The surgery lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of pacing, praying, and holding Bryce's small hand in mine. Todd stayed with us, bringing coffee and sitting in solid silence when words weren't enough. My mother had wheeled herself to the chapel, and through the window I could see her shoulders shaking as she prayed and probably wrestled with her own guilt. The other relatives had scattered, too ashamed to stay but sending texts of support that felt hollow after what they'd revealed. Bryce never left my side. "Mom," he said during hour 3, looking up at me with those serious gray eyes, "I knew Aunt Lisa was lying because you're the strongest person I know. You work 2 jobs, help us with homework, and still make time to read us stories every night. That's not weak. That's superhero stuff." I pulled him close, breathing in the little boy's smell of his hair. "When did you get so wise?" "I watch you, Mom. I see how hard you try. Melody sees it too. That's why she always says you're her hero in those school papers, not some made-up character." Dr. Harrison appeared in the doorway at hour 6, still in his surgical scrubs. His mask was pulled down and he was smiling. Actually, smiling. "The surgery went better than expected," he said. "We were able to relieve the pressure successfully. Her brain responded immediately. She's not out of the woods yet, but her signs are strong. Really strong." I collapsed into the chair, tears flowing freely. Bryce climbed into my lap, something he rarely did anymore, claiming he was too big. "She's gonna be okay, Mom." I knew it. 2 days later, Melody opened her eyes. The first word she said was, "Mom." Weak and raspy, but the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. The second word was Bryce. My son climbed carefully onto her bed, mindful of all the tubes and wires. "I heard you, little brother," she whispered. "I heard you standing up for us. You're my hero." "I'm not a hero," Bryce said, but he was smiling through his tears. "I just told the truth." "Sometimes that's the bravest thing anyone can do," Dr. Harrison said from the doorway. He'd been checking on us personally, going beyond his usual duties. The next weeks brought revelations that changed everything. Dennis's lawyer, Mr. Garrett, contacted me directly. Dennis had indeed died in a small plane crash 5 weeks ago. He'd been taking flying lessons, working on getting his pilot's license as part of his journey to become the man he thought his children deserved. He'd been sober for 18 months. He talked about Rachel and the kids constantly, Mr. Garrett told me, handing over a letter Dennis had written but never sent. He was planning to reach out on Melody's birthday, thought it would be a good time to ask for a second chance. The letter was water-stained from my tears before I finished reading it. Dennis apologized for everything. He'd left not because he didn't love us, but because he didn't love himself and needed to fix that first. The life insurance was his way of making sure we were protected while he worked on becoming better. The settlement from his small aircraft company brought the total inheritance to nearly $500,000. Lisa was charged with fraud and attempted custody interference. During the investigation, they discovered she'd been stealing from elderly clients, hiding assets during their real estate transactions. She lost her real estate license and faced multiple lawsuits. The family divided completely. Some still defended her, claiming she'd been trying to help in a misguided way. Most rallied around us, appalled by what she'd attempted. My mother moved out of Lisa's house and into a senior community near us. "I'm so ashamed, Rachel," she told me, holding my hands with her weathered ones. "I let Lisa poison my mind with her materialism. I forgot what really mattered. Can you forgive a foolish old woman?" "There's nothing to forgive, Mom. You're here now." Todd became an even more constant presence, picking up the kids from school when I had appointments, teaching Bryce how to use tools, and showing Melody how to be strong in physical therapy. "Family shows up," he said simply. "I should have shown up more before." 6 months later, Melody was back on the soccer field. She ran slower and tired quicker, but she was there, her turquoise jersey bright in the sun. The coach said she could be the assistant coach until she was fully recovered, but Melody insisted on playing. "I didn't survive brain surgery to sit on the sidelines," she announced, sounding so much like her brother that it made me laugh. Bryce's school had a My Hero presentation at the end of the year. Most kids talked about firefighters or comic book characters. Bryce stood at that podium, just tall enough to reach the microphone, and talked about his mom and sister. "Heroes aren't people who never fall down," he said, reading from his carefully printed notes. "Heroes are people who get back up every time. My mom gets up at 5 every morning to make our breakfast before work. My sister got up from a coma that should have killed her. And sometimes being a hero means speaking truth when everyone else is silent." That night, as I tucked both my children into their beds in our new house, a modest 3-bedroom we'd bought with careful planning and the inheritance money, Melody asked, "Mom, why did Aunt Lisa really do all that?" I smoothed her hair back, thinking carefully. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people let jealousy and greed turn them into someone they're not. Aunt Lisa saw our love for each other and wanted it for herself, but she tried to take it instead of earn it," Bryce added from his new bed across the room. "She forgot that family isn't about money or houses. It's about showing up and telling the truth, even when it's scary." "Especially when it's scary," Melody agreed. As I turned off their light, I realized my 7-year-old son had taught everyone a lesson that day in the hospital. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about standing up for love when faced with cruelty, about choosing truth when lies would be easier. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the most powerful truths. Dr. Harrison told me later he'd never seen anything like it in 30 years of medicine. A 7-year-old boy saving his family with nothing but truth and a battered iPhone. But I wasn't surprised. After all, I'd raised him to know that integrity is the most powerful weapon against deception. The last time I saw Lisa was in court. She looked smaller somehow, her perfect facade cracked beyond repair. She tried to catch my eye, maybe hoping for forgiveness or understanding. But I was done looking backward. My children and I had a future to build, one based on truth, love, and the unbreakable bonds that had been tested in fire and come out stronger. That future started with tucking my children in each night, both of them safe, both of them whole, both of them knowing without doubt that they were loved beyond measure. The money from Dennis helped with security, but it was Bryce's courage that saved our family. Love defended by truth is the strongest force in the world. And somewhere, maybe, Dennis knew that his children had become everything he'd hoped they would be. Strong like their mother, brave like the father he'd been trying to become, and united in a way that no amount of money could buy or replace. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart or reminded you of the power of truth and family, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your comments mean the world to me, so please share your thoughts below. And if you want to hear more stories that celebrate courage, love, and the strength of family bonds, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, remember that sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths.